Hey, somebody's got to register to vote today. You did? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer.
All right, let's go. Right there, and what do you want to give for him? 40 over here, now 45 in and out.
Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth. With listeners now in 91 countries around the world, welcome, Barbados. Hey, Barbados. I am the Professional Noticer.
License and registration, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. As the Professional Noticer, it is my job to professionally notice something for you, and nothing's off limits. So what is your area of interest? Business? Family? Spiritual issues? Popular culture? We even tackle the odd conundrum like, when considering the term everything in moderation, would you always want to follow that rule, or just in moderation? My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life you would live if all your toughest questions were answered. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by Kamado Joe Premium Ceramic Grills. These are just quite simply the best. Have you ever been in the middle of doing something you love, but you're just kind of frustrated by the quality of whatever it was you were using? Perhaps you already have a ceramic grill, even a big one that's an odd color. I used to have one of those, but maybe you're the only one who can lift the lid to check on dinner. Not even your 13-year-old boy can lift it. And yeah, when you look in the back, the hinge does look like something a kid made in a high school shop class. Well, some years ago, this was pretty much the realization a couple of guys had about grilling. They loved it. They grilled all the time, weekend after weekend. However, they'd be a bit disappointed in their grills. As it turned out, these guys had the ability that allowed them to design and develop a better grill. Not just a better grill, but the best grill. The Kamado Joe, in all its sizes and with all its specialized tools, and its counterbalanced stainless steel hinge. Even on the Big Joe, a 360-pound Big Joe, a 10-year-old can lift the lid to fully open using a single finger. Go, stop in somewhere. Just try one out. Kamado Joe is the world's best ceramic cooker. So check out KamadoJoe.com or anywhere fine grills are sold. Observations and answers are what we do here. I deliver the observations. You provide the questions. Always remember, the quality of the answers can only be determined by the quality of our questions. And I would love to field a question from you. So write me. Email is theprofessionalnoticer@andyandrews.com. And hey, if we use your question, the Professional Noticer will send you your choice of the Guided Traveler Experience, an 8-hour live video seminar, or you could choose 100-Year Parenting. This is a collection of 53 videos, each between 10 and 20 minutes. A lot of fun. Okay, this week our first question is from Patrick. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Andy. Here, I believe, is a difficult and challenging question for you. It certainly seems to be for me. My parents are both 82 years old. Their health is fair. Mom started smoking again after 15 years of being smoke-free. She says it is, or believes it to be, due to the stress of making meals and caring for my father. The big challenge is this. My parents are hoarders. So how can I get them to unload and get rid of things they think are treasures? This is not a matter of simply having too many valuable objects accumulate over time. They have so much stuff that Dad can't get through the hallways in the house. It's dangerous. They could fall, lose their way, or be trapped inside a house if it catches on fire. Anyway, thanks for your insight and anything you can share, your perspective. It's greatly appreciated. All the best. Take care, Andy.
Patrick, thank you very much for the question. That is a very unusual question, and you're right. It is a difficult and challenging question. Man, at 82 years of age, both of them, your mom and dad, first of all, I don't know how old you are, but let me just say that I envy you having had your parents for that long, 82 years old and in fair health. Even though I know you might feel like wearing a face mask around with your mom and going, really, Mom, really? After 15 years of not smoking, you're smoking again. And there is a lot of stress that one spouse feels when taking care of another. And I mean, I know that you wish you could chew gum instead of smoke, but at 82 years of age, there's probably not a lot you're going to be able to do about it. But the hoarding thing is interesting. Now, this is very interesting to me. And your question about how you can get them to unload and get rid of things they think are treasures, I think that is I think that's probably the key phrase in there. These are things they think are treasures. Now, you explain, this is not just having a bunch of valuable objects around that they've accumulated over a lifetime. And of course, at 82 years of age, you would imagine that somebody has probably accumulated a lot of things that are valuable in that period of time. But you say these are not valuable things. This is so much stuff that they can't get through the hallway in the house. You're right. That is dangerous. They could fall. There's a lot of things that could happen. People get trapped under that stuff, or certainly you're thinking about your mother smoking. When you say, what if they're trapped inside, the place catches on fire? I mean, my imagination runs wild with what you don't say exactly what this stuff is, but of course, I'm imagining newspapers and things stacked up on top of things with things on top of those things. And, there are a couple of moves that you have in your arsenal here. Now, the first thing that you really, I guess, have to determine, and you don't mention if you have any brothers or sisters or anything, but if you do, you guys need to get together and determine what level of competency is actually going on here, and if this is something that you need to take charge of. I know there comes a time that you would need to gently step in, and depending on an older person's ability to know what's going on around them. My grandmother had Alzheimer's before we knew what Alzheimer's was. This was years ago, and my sister and I dealt with this with her, but this was before there was some diagnosis. People just called it old age, or I think maybe some people called it dementia at the time. But it's a really, obviously, this is something that a ton of people deal with, and there are some basics to dealing with that. But the toughest time to deal with it is not when it's kind of full blown, when everybody knows what's happening, everybody knows what's going on. The time that's the toughest to deal with it is when it's developing, when they're getting it. Okay. And so it sounds like to me, now this is just me, and you have to decide, Patrick, but it sounds to me as if this could be a contributing factor, that you don't mention that, hey, they're both in the throes of Alzheimer's, but you do mention some maybe odd behavior here. And again, that's the toughest time for everybody, because people seem not to know what to do, or they seem not to know what's going on. And that's the time people lose their temper. That's the time where, the children say things like, how many times do I have to tell you, no, I don't want any coffee? You've asked me 5 times. And the older person is is upset. They don't realize they've asked 5 times. And then the younger person, this is new behavior, and how many times do I have to tell you? And so it's stuff that's kind of manifesting itself, and people, we don't seem to handle that transition well. Later when we know the behavior and we know why the behavior is happening, it's a lot easier to help, because we don't have to tell somebody, look, you have said this 5 times. We already know that they have, and they don't know that they have, and all we can do is make them feel worse. So we just don't, or we go along with the things that they seem to want to do, as long as they aren't dangerous. And I remember one of the smartest things I ever saw in my life. My cousin Tyler, when Maymay was having, this was really becoming a problem, and none of us really knew what to do. And we had all gathered one place for Christmas, and it was way out of town for my grandmother. And, she just decided one afternoon that she wanted to go home. And her sister was upset and trying to explain to her that they couldn't go home, that, we're here for Christmas. But my grandmother, all she knew was she wanted to go home. And the family was kind of getting into an uproar. Nobody really knew how to deal with it. And May was getting kind of upset. But my cousin Tyler stepped in, and he walked into the living room, and he had Maymay's suitcase, and he said, "Hey, Maymay, tell everybody goodbye. I have your suitcase here. I'm going to go ahead and take you home." And she said, okay. And she said goodbye. And Tyler walked Maymay out of the house and helped her into the car and drove around for 30 minutes and came back to the house and said, "Isn't it good to be home?" And she said, "It really is." And she came back in, and everything was fine. Now, some people might look at that and say, I'm not sure that's the proper way to deal with it. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know what the proper way to deal with it is, maybe, but that surely solved the situation. It didn't make Maymay feel bad. Nobody else was really upset, beyond what was obviously going on. But, the person to remember at this time is your mom and dad. They're still your mom and dad. And so how are you going to deal with this wisely? Now knowing, Patrick, that this may be happening, one of your options is to, have a brother and sister or a friend, take them somewhere, or, go out for coffee, and to take some of that stuff and move it out. And you have to decide what to do with it, right? I mean, you can decide to open up a storage unit and put it in the storage unit so that if they ask for it, you can say, "Daddy, I put that stuff in the storage unit for you. I wanted you to be able to have it when you wanted it, and it's waiting there for you." And you don't really have to get into a conversation with them about, I'm hoping you don't have to get into a conversation with them about, you have to do something about this. Okay? Because if you think you have to get into that conversation, just know it will not turn out well. Because in your parents' minds, no matter where your parents' minds are at this point, in their minds, they are still your parents. They are the adult, you are the child, and they don't have to do anything, okay? And anything to the contrary coming from you is just going to upset everybody, okay? So at the point that you can go ahead and kindly take charge, especially if it is something that they're not going to notice, all right? Now, if they are going to notice, or if one of them is going to notice, then there's got to be a way that you can create a situation that absolutely has to be dealt with by putting the stuff in storage. Now, you can create that situation in many different ways. The fire marshal can help you create that situation. There are authorities that they're kind people who could understand that could help you create that situation. If you see that they're going to be mad no matter what, okay, which, we understand this. But at this point, I'm going about this, Patrick, as if there's some thinking that's kind of off at that age, because even though we have seen 30-year-old people on reality shows that hoard stuff like this, I think we can all agree their thinking is a little off, okay? But at 82, you have a little bit more of an excuse for doing that kind of thing. But it's still dangerous. And so I really believe you, and you probably already know this, that you have a responsibility to protect your mom and dad. And if they're going to be mad at somebody, let's just not have them mad at you. Let's not have them mad at your sister or your brother, okay? Your friend who can step in and, might be the fire marshal or might be the neighborhood watch committee or whoever it is, your person who steps in, who they're never going to see again anyway, they can be mad at them. And you can be mad at them too. Okay, I mean, for your mom and dad, you can be mad at them, and but nobody has to get hugely upset. You can take care of your mom and dad in this matter, at least, I guess, for your mom to continue to take care of your dad there until that has to change. But this is a tough situation, man, and again, it's a situation that honestly, I wish I'd had the opportunity to have. Okay, my parents passed away when I was 19, and so I look at somebody like you, Patrick, and I'm in an odd way. I say, hey, good for Patrick. That he has his parents to even deal with this on. So a lot of great years there, man, a lot of great memories, and treat them with love and kindness. I know you will. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. Hey, here's a thought. I know you can use Google to find boat rentals in South Carolina or to answer where exactly is the Bermuda Triangle. But where do you seek wisdom? There's a difference in knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge will help you properly navigate with the compass, but wisdom will keep you headed in the right direction long after you're back on land, right? Pure knowledge without the wisdom to apply that knowledge in the proper way is often useless. So allow me to suggest wisdomharbor.com. That's Wisdom Harbor, Harbor. It's Harbor with an O-U-R. Go there now and be welcomed by a friend of yours. Get a free 5-minute guided tour and see why businesses and schools and families are now making this web portal their most recommended tool is wisdomharbor.com. Our next question is from Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hi, Andy. I'm a longtime fan and fellow traveler. Thanks for sharing and for helping us find perspective. I'm a little discouraged today, and I need some wisdom. For the past 35 years, I've worked very hard to be successful in my personal and professional life. I've adopted strategies and suggestions from some of the top leaders in my field and in the areas of leadership. I've dotted my I's, crossed all my T's, and I've even gone the extra mile to do more than what was expected. Yet I feel like I'm coming up empty and missing the mark. I've had several professional goals that turned out to be just out of reach for one reason or another. It's discouraging to work for so many years to accomplish something only to see someone else come along with less experience and effortlessly do what I was attempting because they knew someone or had connections I did not. I recently read a quote that said, "It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness, that is life." I also read another quote that said, quote, "Man's rejection is God's protection," end quote. Are these quotes just a cop-out for people who have failed, or do they have significance? And where do they fit in? So what now? What do I do with my life when everything I've worked so hard to achieve seems to become meaningless? I'm feeling lost. I feel like I've missed my chance at accomplishing or contributing much in my area of interest and expertise, especially as I grow older. What now? Thanks, Andy, from a weary traveler.
Scott, hey, thanks. That's a very interesting question. It's interesting to me because I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly how you feel, not just because I have worked with a lot of people who felt that way. I have felt that way. I felt that way a bunch of times in my life. And sometimes people are I guess, surprised to hear that. But, I say quite often when I'm speaking to a bunch of people, I can look in their eyes and they can, I've done this for a while and I've worked with this stuff for a while and I continue to learn, but I can see in their eyes sometimes that they think I'm some kind of an expert or some kind of a guru or something. And I always stop when I start to see that and I go, hey, everybody, just kind of hang on just a second. I just want to make sure everybody knows that just because I know this stuff and understand it, don't think that I'm always great at it. Okay, I really, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a friend, and I am learning as hard and fast as I can, and that is certainly true about stuff like this, Scott, because the greatest battle you do is that battle with yourself. The thoughts, we often talk about, and I heard you say that you've worked very hard to be successful in your personal and professional life for 35 years. And so a couple of things I heard when you said that is, number one, for 35 years, he's probably, 5 or 6 years younger than I am. And the other thing I heard was that you've probably read a lot and listened a lot. You said you adopted strategies and suggestions from the top leaders in your field and leadership. And so that tells me that you've read a lot, you've listened a lot. And so one of the things we hear is that we do battle with our thoughts. But one of the things that people don't talk about a ton is that biggest battle you do is not just with your thoughts, it's with your thoughts about yourself. Listen, man, I understand dotting your I's and crossing your T's and going the extra mile. Unfortunately, I also understand that feeling of, good grief, I can't believe, all this work and I'm only here or wherever that is, or that I didn't get to do that. These are defeating thoughts. But man, I just dare anybody who has been successful at anything, I dare anybody to look me in the eye and tell me they haven't had those thoughts. Come on. And so the game obviously becomes, how do you deal with that kind of stuff? What if the battle is thoughts about myself and how I'm thinking, then, what am I supposed to do about that? Because you are looking, and I understand this, Scott, you are looking at all you have done to succeed and the things that other people have stepped in and kept you from. And I understand that. And maybe they hadn't even kept you from it. Maybe they didn't even know they were keeping you from it. You said you've seen people step in and they had less experience and less knowledge, and then they did it because they had someone in their life or connections that you didn't have. And now here's the thing. I know that you didn't call just to provide material for everybody. I know that a question like this comes not just from your heart, this comes from your gut. And I know that somehow you would hope to God somebody could come up with something that would make sense to you. And kind of reinvigorate you. And that's what I want to do right now in the next few minutes, because I can honestly tell you, after a lifetime of experiencing what you're talking about, number one, I still deal with it. And number two, I do believe I know the best antidote for this battle against ourselves. And the best antidote, frankly, is the truth. Okay, now, I'm not necessarily talking about what is true. You probably read The Bottom of the Pool, and so you know there's a difference in what is true and the truth. So I'm talking about the truth. The antidote to your feelings are the truth. And here's one truth right off the bat, Scott. These are your feelings. Okay, see, the truth gives you reality, and so a lot of times our feelings are not based on reality. Our feelings are based on, the things we think at the moment. And remember what Jones told me one time. He said, you can't always believe everything you think. And so you're looking for the truth, not just about yourself, but especially about yourself. You're looking for the truth of all the things around you, all the things that have bearing on you and on your situation. Now, let me tell you a couple that might be uncomfortable for you to hear, but just know we're going to get to something really great here. One of the things that might be uncomfortable for you to hear is that, my ears perked up when you said that it was discouraging to work for so many years to accomplish something, only to see somebody else come along, less experienced, and effortlessly do what you're attempting because they knew someone or they had connections you didn't have. Oh boy, do I know that feeling. Now, here is the truth. Something in their life, some move they made, some action they took, some action they did not take, some left instead of a right, some right instead of a left, allowed them to meet and build a relationship with somebody who was that connection. I have seen this happen over and over and over in my life. And if we are to have the peace of believing that we are guided and that we do have a purpose, then we have a responsibility to control what we can control. And what I know that I can control is me. I can control how I react to people. I can control what I decide to do for people. I can control how I think about my actions, how I think about, am I doing this for me? Am I doing this for someone else? Am I doing this for someone else because they might do something for me? I mean, these are things that you have to ask yourself to get down to the truth about yourself. And so just understand that when it comes to connections in life, everybody's either building them, acquiring them, or ignoring them or pushing them away. And at this point in your life, I'm assuming you're probably around 54, 55, and you have learned a ton, and you've listened and you've read a lot. I'll just tell you, at this time of your life, it don't matter what you've done in the past. You can pick up ground so quickly that everybody else's head will spin. Okay, now you said that you had read a quote that said it's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life. I got to tell you, that to me, no, this is just me. And you might tell me later, yeah, Mother Teresa said that. Well, okay, fine. I still think it's kind of a miserable quote because it has it has some quicksand in it that a lot of people never see. And then they step in it and they're stuck. And I think you're stuck reading this quote. I think this quote has some elements of true, but as far as truth, this is kind of a dangerous thing to think about or believe, okay? Because it's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. Well, it's possible to do incredible things and still lose. But who's to say that you're losing? Who's to say that you have lost? I mean, that's life. You being able to decide. I mean, the only way I look at this situation, the only way I look at you, Scott, and say, well, Scott lost, is that if Scott, if I hear that Scott quit everything, he just quit. He stopped. He said, I was fooled all those years. Well, then you may lose. But right now, brother, you're lost. And remember, a sign of maturity in a person is their ability to live in ambiguity. And that means confusion. That means not knowing. A sign of maturity in a person is their ability to continue forward even when they don't know the outcome. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's hard, or well, I just can't do that, or I'm not that kind of person. But in reality, everybody does it every day. It's just what degree do you do it to? How mature are you? Are you mature enough to have the ability to continue to open the envelope, even though you don't know what's in the envelope? Because a lot of us open envelopes, that come in the mail, we don't know what's in it. But you're still continuing on with that. Now, a higher level of maturity is required to continue on with what you're doing, even though you don't know exactly where the break is going to be, where the exciting part is going to happen, when the big yes is going to come, when the big opportunity is going to manifest itself. You don't necessarily know that right now, but Scott, remember, if you think back to the greatest breakthrough you ever had, or the thing that you worked the hardest for, and then all of a sudden you got the answer, something you didn't know and you just struggled to learn. And then all of a sudden, boom, there it was, you knew it. You just got to back up a few seconds and remember that right before you got the answer, you didn't know the answer. I mean, an hour before the opportunity landed in your lap, you had no idea the opportunity was coming. And so how many people stop before that is allowed to happen? So dude, don't stop. You say you read another quote that man's rejection is God's protection. Is that true, or just a cop-out for somebody who's failed? All right, now, listen. Come on now. That is not just a cop-out for somebody who's failed. How many times have you said in your life, wow, it's a good thing I didn't get to do that, because if I had gotten to do that, that would have not turned out well? How many times have you said in your life, wow, we would never have chosen that in a million years, but because that happened, look at what's happening now. Man's rejection is God's protection. Listen, there isn't anybody who ever wanted to be on The Tonight Show more than I wanted to be on The Tonight Show. When I was working as a comedian, I wanted so badly to be on The Tonight Show. And everything I had done everything was saying, this guy should get on The Tonight Show. I was winning the college, the entertainer of the year things and comedian of the year things. And, I was touring with Joan Rivers and Kenny Rogers. I was doing Las Vegas. I was doing all these things, but I couldn't get on The Tonight Show. And I was hearing all the stories. Everybody said, you get on The Tonight Show one time, just hit it one time. Johnny asked you over to the couch, and that career is made forever. You have sitcoms and blah, 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 blah. And man, it used to just eat me up. But it wasn't that I just, that they never took notice of me. They saw me and didn't want me. Oh, no, I mean, the guy, I remember who the talent guy who handled the comedians, a guy named Jim McCauley. And tons of my friends got on The Tonight Show. But I got to say, there are a couple of things about that I see in retrospect. One is there have been things in my life that I thought I was ready to do. And had somebody let me do them, it would have been a disaster and everything would have stopped. And the other part of it is I look at there are things that I wanted to do that I thought was the best pathway for me. But, I have friends, like I say, that did the Tonight Show. And, a couple of them, you know who they are now. Okay, but there's a lot of them who had kind of just moderate careers for a long time, and they're either doing something else now or they still have modest careers. And my point is, maybe if I had been able to do the Tonight Show, I wouldn't be talking with you. My life would have gone in a different direction, and I wouldn't have been open to using those chops. I mean, what I do today as a professional noticer, it's the same thing that you do as a comedian. It's the same thing, just focusing the energy and the awareness in a different direction. So, come on, dude. You are being protected. Whew. What do you do now? You keep on and you find the truth. Now, I've given you some truth. Let me urge you to find your own. All right? Every time I have a book that is rejected, or I have a book that people say crazy things about, oh, we hate this book, or, I have some publishers say, well, this is not, whatever. Anytime I get discouraged about that, I look for the truth. And I go find reviews and situations that other authors who are a lot better than I am and a lot more success than I'll ever have. And I find things that were really said about them, that were really written about them. I find where, publishers told Theodore Geisel that, his stuff was ridiculous and would not be marketable to children because it was too silly. And Theodore Geisel was Dr. Seuss, as you know. Rudyard Kipling was told he didn't have a command of the English language. This guy wrote The Jungle Book and many other things. I can't tell you how many stories like that there are. And so I want to read you just one little part out of this book. I've dealt with this so much, Scott, that even when I wrote the book, The Noticer, I put some of this in here, okay? And so let me just read to you a part. This is Jones talking to a lady named Willow Calloway, and she's older, and she's kind of feeling like, man, have I just missed the mark? Have I missed my chance at accomplishing anything? And I'm growing older, and what am I supposed to do now? So this is Jones talking to Willow Calloway. It starts at the bottom of page 81. Let me give you a different perspective about feeling that your time has passed. Isn't it a good thing that Harlan Sanders didn't retire when he turned 65? The name didn't register with Willow. Harlan Sanders? You probably remember him as Colonel Sanders, but it wasn't until he was 65 that he took a family recipe and began franchising restaurants to serve his fried chicken. And all he had at the time was his Social Security checks to get started, $105 a month. I didn't know that, Willow said. 65, was he? Pretty good for a young person. Jones chuckled. I thought you might see it that way. Well, what about Benjamin Franklin? He didn't invent bifocals until he was 78. Winston Churchill was also 78 and finished with more than a couple of careers when he wrote a book that won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Want me to continue? Then, without so much as another breath, he said, Nelson Mandela was inaugurated president of South Africa for the first time, after years in that country's prisons, at the age of 75. Igor Stravinsky was still doing concerts when he was 87. Grandma Moses, the artist, did not sell her first painting until she was 90. Michelangelo didn't begin his work on St. Peter's Basilica, one of the world's greatest treasures, until he was 72. Listen, Scott, she asked, how long could you go on with a list like that? And Joan says, how much time do you have? So, dude, I want to see you on a list like that in a few years. Keep after it. You don't have to be weary. Take a deep breath. Keep rolling. Good things are going to happen. Okay. I am the professional noticer. Ladies and gentlemen, if you appreciate this podcast, we would appreciate you going to iTunes and giving us a nice review. Like 5 stars would be nice, I think. You know, of course, you can only review a particular podcast on iTunes one time, okay? Therefore, if you haven't already, please make today your day, okay? Anyway, I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing the tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk. Shake hands with the kids you meet. And make sure you have an answer to the question, if George Washington were alive today and someone asked him for identification, would he use a $1 bill or just flip him a quarter? Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Cherry's Jubilee provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by the Snow Globe Society of the World. Throughout history, the perception of what the Earth actually is has fascinated and perplexed the world's greatest minds. New ideas can be dangerous, and many, like Galileo, have been met with contempt and persecution when attempting to redefine the norm. But times have changed, and all over the globe, more and more people are free to decide what the physical world means to them. Society today allows them to come to conclusions that defy gravity, or even logic. You've heard of the flat earthers? You are probably a round earther. But now, you can be introduced to the latest and greatest of all the nonsense physics has ever had to offer. It's the incredible theory of snow globivity. The theory of snow globivity is indeed new science, brought to light by the Society, who only last year uncovered proof that the United States government has for decades now concealed and covered up evidence that the Earth is in fact inside a snow globe. According to the Society, there's no room for debate. Consider these questions they have been asked and the answers they provided in return. Why is the sun so bright? Because it's refracting through a round piece of glass. Why do we have air? It's the bubbles that have shown up unexpectedly at the top. What is it that causes snow? Someone has turned us upside down. Learn the answers to more questions like these and join the Snow Globe Society of the World today. Meet the growing number of our 27 members and let them turn your world upside down. That's the Snow Globe Society of the World.com.